President Biden is expected to announce authorization to use the Defense Production Act in the coming days. The Russia-Ukraine conflict putting that into focus as the minerals in the supply chain needed for electric vehicles and other critical tech remain uncertain. For more on this, let's bring in Rich Nolan, National Mining Association President and CEO. So, Rich, what do we know about how this directive will work and what it will cover?
Well, it's really exciting that one of the first times the White House has seen and recognized the urgency of the global race to make sure that we have the minerals we need for the electrification of the economy. It's an exciting, historic day. The president made this announcement earlier today, and it really shows the dedication and commitment and sends a signal from this administration that they're serious about bringing back our supply chains and sourcing these materials. I mean, the forecast demands, I don't have to tell your listeners, that are going to explode for things like nickel and lithium and even copper. The forecasts are anywhere between 500 and 1,000% over the next 20 years. So this is really a first step. There's more that needs to be done in the permitting space. But we're really excited that the administration is taking this important step forward to give the Department of Defense some tools to come forward and partner with the Congress and the private sector to really begin to ramp up production of these essential minerals.
So then in terms of where the US currently stands, talk about the key existing supply chains that the US does rely on for the minerals you named, including lithium, nickel, graphite, cobalt, you mentioned copper, also manganese. What sort of pressure are they under at the moment?
They're under tremendous pressure. We saw this even before the pandemic began. There were certainly stressors in the market that were weakening the supply chains for these materials. Much of this material is sourced currently overseas with geopolitical rivals controlling a lot of the marketplace and the flows for things like lithium, where they really have cornered the market in the processing of this essential material. So it's really important not only to bring the mining back to the United States, not only should we be mining it here in America, but we also need to be processing it. Right now, most of this material goes overseas for processing to China.
So then to that point, then, you did say in your notes that the US is already far behind in that regard. What kinds of policies would be most useful in getting the US up to speed, and what sort of infrastructure is needed to support that in order to make it a reality?
Well, again, I think the step that was taken today by the White House is a good one. We have a lot more work to do with the Department of Defense to get those investments up and off the ground and actually get steel in the ground to make sure we can produce these essential materials. Other enabling policies would be to improve the permitting process here in the United States. It takes up to 10 years to permit a new mine. Some of our competitors in Canada and Australia can make it happen in 3. And we'd like to see some improvements moving forward in that space. We are certainly excited about the investments and the market signals coming out of the use of the Defense Production Act today. And we think that will certainly begin to attract more capital as that market signal is really important, that folks know that the United States is open for business, and what's made in America should also be mined in America.
Now, you mentioned a couple of timelines then. So in reality then, when could we realistically expect the US supplies to actually meet the sort of demand that it has, especially when you consider the growth that we have as our tech is getting smarter and we are putting more pressure to have some of these smarter cars and smarter gadgets?
Right. Well, that's a great question. The markets are already extremely stressed. You've already seen prices spike for things like nickel and lithium and platinum, palladium. The Russian invasion of Ukraine and the geopolitical upheaval that has caused has also caused additional stressors in the marketplace, and those prices are spiking. So much so now that you're starting to see at least 2 major electric automobile companies raise their prices as these minerals become more and more expensive. What we're desperately afraid of is if the United States doesn't get moving, we're going to have shortages for these materials, much like we're having difficulties in our other supply chains. And the availability of these goals for next generation electric vehicles is going to fall short. So if we don't get moving now, we're going to be in real trouble.
So then to build on that, in terms of consequences, if this doesn't get resolved quickly, what is at stake when you think of where this might place the US economy, when you think of how other countries are competing in the smart tech space?
Well, certainly we're behind, and I would certainly caution, I have cautioned both bipartisan members of Congress in the House and the Senate that we are behind, that China has made these investments overseas, that if we don't do the same and continue to drive hard for electrification of the economy, that we'll again be trading one concern of geopetropolitics for another related to metals mining and metals processing for the things we need for everyday life.